The crown prince, my loving husband of 7 years, lost his memory while adrift in the countryside. He fell in love with a wild camellia, one who grew freely in the fields. "Rosalind," he said, "I can never understand why I would have ever loved a woman as lifeless as you." I neither cried nor protested, maintaining the dignity of a highborn lady. I burned, one by one, the gifts he had given me: the wolf, hairbrush, the peace talisman, the garden full of gardenias. He let out a sigh of relief, thinking I had finally let go. He began to dote on that wild camellia with even greater fervor. Until the day his memories returned, he stood guard over my now barren courtyard, not daring to take a single step inside. And then, he watched as I, wasted by years of pining and exhaustion, slowly faded away like a lamp running out of oil. When Cain brought news that the crown prince had been found, I had just finished checking our son Leo's schoolwork. He was quite insightful for one so young. Leo is my son with Theodore, now 6 years old. My hands trembled, and the book fell to the floor. I tried to suppress the tremor in my voice. "Has he returned?" Cain looked at me with difficulty, his head bowed low. "The prince refuses to return," he says. "He is getting married." I refused to believe it. We had known each other for 18 years, been married for 7. He was the one who had come to my family's door to ask for my hand, the one who had promised he would have only me as his wife for his entire life. My nails, painted red, dug deep into my palms, but the pain was nothing compared to the ache in my heart. "Cain, bring him back." Cain didn't dare to look at me as he took his leave. He did not disappoint. A month later, he returned with Theodore. He had been drugged and carried back, only just regaining consciousness upon arrival. Yes, it was him. The man I had searched for with all my heart for a year. How could I be mistaken? How could I ever mistake Theodore? Even though I had seen several men, and corpses, who resembled him over the past year, I could always tell the difference at a glance. The man before me, though dressed in the simplest coarse cloth, his hair disheveled and his once smooth skin roughened by the elements. I knew in an instant it was him. "Theo," I choked out, fighting back tears. Theodore looked at me with alarm. "Who are you? Where is Luna? Where is she? Don't you dare harm her." These were the first words between us after a year apart. He didn't know who I was, but he was consumed with worry for this Luna. It was the first time he had ever looked at me with such coldness, such indifference. The strength I had maintained for a year shattered completely. This was not the gaze Theodore should have for me. The pain in my heart intensified. Clara, my maid, quickly explained the situation to him. But Theodore's brow remained furrowed, his expression growing darker the more he heard. Especially when he learned that I was his wife of 7 years and the mother of his son, there was not a trace of joy or warmth on his face. After a long silence, he finally spoke. His voice was as gentle and polite as ever, but it carried a distance it never had before. "My lady, I do not recognize you, nor do I remember the past. I only wish to be an ordinary man of the mountains, to be Luna's husband, and to live a simple life with her. My lady, please let me go." He spoke each word with sincerity, but each word was a knife stabbing at my heart. Fighting back the tears that threatened to fall, I simply instructed the servants to see that he was well rested. Back in my chambers, the tension in my nerves finally eased. "Clara, tell me why. Why would he forget me?" Our decade of friendship, growing from childhood sweethearts to a loving couple, was known throughout the capital. Everyone knew how well Theodore treated me, so well that every woman in the city envied me. He had loved me so deeply, cherished me so tenderly. Now, all that was left was a single phrase: "I've forgotten." Clara brought me a cup of hot tea, her eyes full of pity. "Your Highness, do not take it to heart. The prince has lost his memory. I have already summoned the imperial physician. Once he has cured the prince's amnesia, everything will go back to the way it was." I nodded, greedily clinging to the warmth of the teacup, and to that faint glimmer of hope. The imperial physician came every day, but could not find a cure, nor could he prescribe any medicine. Theodore refused to cooperate, either throwing pillows or smashing teacups. The Crown Prince's palace was constantly filled with the sound of breaking porcelain. When I went to see him, he had just shattered a blue and white vase. A flying shard grazed the back of my hand, drawing a bead of red. Theodore froze, momentarily at a loss. I didn't know you were here. I sat down opposite him and poured him a cup of tea. Snow, bud, it used to be your favorite. He sat on the edge of the bed, his gaze a mixture of complexity and sorrow. I believe what you've told me. For a moment, I thought I had misheard. He continued, the bracelet you are wearing. I have a thumb ring that is identical, also carved with gardenias. He was skilled in all manner of leisure. Even without his memories, the preferences ingrained in his very bones remained. The carving on the bracelet and the ring was identical. They were his betrothal gifts to me. He had told me he had searched far and wide for the finest jade and had carved the bracelet himself, with my favorite gardenia flowers. I wore the bracelet, he wore the ring. They were a pair. But, I am sorry. I truly can't remember, and I don't love you anymore. His words were a heavy stone on my chest, pinning me down. I couldn't understand. It had only been a year, a blink of an eye. How could he have fallen out of love with me, unable to face his coldness any longer? I fled. My legs felt weak, and I nearly collapsed. Theodore was placed under house arrest in the palace. He tried to escape, but to no avail. So he came to me every day, begging me to let him go. He said, Your Highness, just pretend I died a year ago, that you never found me. I laughed. You used to call me Rosalind. Once upon a time, he would call me tenderly Rosalind, my sweet Rosalind. But a new love had replaced the old. Now, he called me, Your Highness. Perhaps my words startled him, or perhaps the name Rosalind sparked a flicker of something. He seemed to be in a daze. I said softly, Your Highness, if you want Luna to live, you will be obedient. Otherwise, I will make her death a very ugly one. My voice was calm, my hand still holding a brush as I practiced calligraphy. A single, casually spoken sentence, yet it held the power of life and death, especially the life and death of the one who held Theodore's heart. He crumpled the paper I had just written on. His right hand shot out and closed around my neck. Rage had made him lose his senses. Where is Luna? What have you done to her? He squeezed harder, his teeth clenched as if he wanted to devour me whole. I looked at him, my hand grasping his arm, struggling to breathe. This, I gasped, is more befitting of an heir to the throne. His eyes wavered, and his grip loosened. Free again, I couldn't help but cough. Theodore was truly not crown prince material. He had no interest in politics, preferring a life of leisure, like a decadent nobleman. But he had a good mother, the emperor's one true love, who had died young, leaving the emperor to pour all his regrets and affections onto their son. To secure his position, the emperor had chosen a crown princess for him from the most powerful of the 5 great families. And so, at the age of 6, I was sent to the palace to study alongside him. Childhood sweethearts, innocent and inseparable. At 17, he came to my family's home to ask for my hand. We were married that same year. From then on, with my family's support, his position as crown prince was unshakable. I managed almost all the affairs of his household. You could say that I was the prince behind Theodore, catching my breath. I summoned Clara. A short while later, she appeared with Luna. Her eyes were red and swollen as she threw herself into Theodore's arms. Adrian, I thought I'd never see you again, Sniff. She was a picture of sorrow, truly a sight to behold, but their embrace was brief. Cain quickly separated them. Your Highness, if you defy me again, I will have a line carved into Luna's face. I wonder just how many cuts that pretty little face can take. At my words, Luna's tears stopped in shock. She stared at me, then at the equally stunned Theodore. He gritted his teeth. Rosalind, You wouldn't dare. Why wouldn't I? I was the crown princess. What was wrong with punishing a woman who had tried to seduce the crown prince? Not wanting to waste my breath on him, I ordered Luna to be taken away. That night, it rained heavily. The sky seemed to have cracked open, a waterfall pouring down onto the earth, and Theodore stood in that downpour. Outside Luna's room. He couldn't get in, and she couldn't get out, separated by a wall, like two star-crossed lovers. And I was the cruel queen who had torn them apart. But he was the crown prince. The guards couldn't let him stand in the rain forever. They had to report to me. When I arrived, he was standing ramrod straight in the rain, his white robe soaked through, yet he refused to move. I took the umbrella from Clara and went to his side. Rain streamed down his face. Even pale and weak, on the verge of collapse, he was still handsome, a gentle jade-like figure, but the love in his eyes was all too familiar to me. He didn't spare me a glance, his gaze fixed on the candlelit room. Luna is afraid of thunder. I have to stay with her so she can sleep peacefully. Your Highness need not trouble yourself. Please, return to your chambers. His devotion was a public humiliation for me. It also reminded me of another great storm. We had had a fight, and I had threatened to break off our engagement. That night, he had also stood in the rain outside my door all night, refusing all pleas to leave. He had said, "Rosalind, you are the only one in my heart for this entire life. If you will not marry me, I will never marry. I, Theodore, will never have another." Theodore paused for a moment. Then, without a single glance at me, rushed inside. The door was open. They embraced and wept. He gently wiped her tears, murmuring comforts, as if she were a precious treasure he had fought 1,000 battles to win. And I stood in the rain, wanting to cry, yet finding it all so ridiculous. In the end, all that was left was a deep sense of pathos. Rosalind. Oh, Rosalind, what a pathetic joke you are. Back in my room, Clara wrapped me in a thick quilt. She complained, "Your Highness, you caught a chill when you jumped into the frozen lake to save the prince. You shouldn't have stood in the rain tonight." I held the hand warmer, but felt no warmth, like a wooden doll being arranged by Clara. She sighed deeply. "Your Highness, if you want to cry, just cry. Don't keep it all inside." I didn't cry. I was the daughter of a great house, the crown princess. I was supposed to be resilient, proud, and noble. Weeping was not for me. Clara, perhaps I should let him go. Just as he said, just pretend he died a year ago. A year. It was but a moment. Yet for me, it had been 100 long seasons. Clara was silent for a moment, then shook her head. "My lady, do not be so disheartened. The prince has only lost his memory and been charmed by a common girl. It is just now that Luna is in our hands, he has no choice but to cooperate with the physician. Once he regains his memories, he will naturally return to your side." Her words seemed reasonable, yet I couldn't bring myself to agree. If he did return, was I supposed to forgive him without a second thought, to go back to being a loving couple? My old illness flared up. After being caught in the rain, I couldn't get out of bed the next day. I hadn't expected him to come. Leo was dutifully by my side, having set up a small table by my bed to do his lessons. When Theodore arrived, I had Cain take him away. Is he our son?" I paused, then realized that in the 2 weeks he had been back, he hadn't even seen Leo. I nodded. "His name is Leo. He is 6. Theodore watched his retreating back with a hint of disapproval. "He is so young, he should be playing. Look what you've turned him into. He is as stiff as a little old man." The sudden accusation caught me off guard. When I recovered, I sneered. "Your Highness is truly amusing. As the crown prince's heir, Leo has his duties, and he is a good boy who understands the need to work hard for them. Or should he be like you, abandoning everything for a country girl?" I don't know if my words provoked him, but he was silent for a long time before looking at me directly. Rosalind, I can never understand why I would have ever loved a woman like you. My heart turned to ice, piece by piece. He continued, the wife I imagined should be like Luna, lively and innocent with a naive charm. She should laugh when she is happy and cry when she is sad. I want someone with emotions. A living, breathing person. Not a wooden doll like you, who is skilled in all the arts but whose feelings are impossible to read. Rosalind, did I ever really love you? His eyes told me he was genuinely questioning it. Questioning our past love. Questioning his promise of a lifetime together. Questioning me as a person. His words finally angered me. I ordered Clara to prepare some things. I wrapped myself in a thick robe and led him to the main hall. Clara was efficient. In the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, everything was arranged. The large hall was filled to the brim. I picked up an item from nearby. Your Highness, this is the wolf. Hairbrush you gave me when we first met. You never liked to study. Your essays were terrible, and the imperial tutor punished you by making you copy the exhortation to learning 500 times. I helped you finish it, and you gave me this brush. You said, Rosalind, you are a gift from heaven, sent to save me. He looked at me, silent. I picked up the next item. This is the fox, fur scarf you gave me when you were 12, from the first white fox you ever hunted. You said you hoped I would wear it every winter to feel the warmth of your affection. Next was a peace talisman, stained with a bit of blood. When you were 14, you fell into a frozen lake. I jumped in to save you and fell gravely ill, nearly dying. You crawled up 9,000 steps on your knees, your head and knees bleeding, to get this talisman for me. This is the embroidered pouch you begged me for 3 days to make. You said that since it was embroidered with my favorite gardenias, it should always be with you. This glass jade was your 16th birthday gift to me. This entire garden of gardenias, you planted for me with your own hands. The hall was filled with these things. I remembered the story behind every single one. How could he forget and dismiss it all with a few careless words? I thrust a painting of a swing into his hands. Theodore, tell me, did you ever truly love me? In my anger, I used too much force, and the thin paper tore. The girl in the painting was on a swing, a faint smile on her face, her eyes curved like a proud, silly little kitten. The girl was me. The artist was him. His hands trembled as he held the painting, his gaze complex. I met his eyes. Theodore, if you ever remember, you will regret this. He didn't say if he would, just stared at me as if trying to see into my soul. Another silence, broken only by the sound of the wind. He looked at the torn painting and smoothed it out. A year ago, I woke up in a small hut, covered in wounds, on the brink of death. The first person I saw was Luna. She saved me. Her small body carried me a long way. She stayed by my side day and night, nursing me back to health. All I remember is Luna. Rosalind, I truly do not remember you at all. Yes, he had forgotten. Then what about me? What were all my years worth? A year of searching, and this was the result. I could not accept it. I leaned against the window, watching the leaves fall from the tree, and watching the two figures laughing in the distance. After that day, I had released Luna. He wanted to see for myself what kind of wife he imagined. With Luna by his side, he smiled more often. He wove a pinwheel from the weeds in the garden. She held it and grinned from ear to ear. Adrian, you are the best. Make me a butterfly next. He affectionately pinched her cheek and readily agreed. Their intimacy was a sharp pain in my eyes. Without me, it would have been a beautiful picture. Clara draped a cloak over my shoulders. Your Highness, do not be sad. The prince has been taking his medicine diligently. The physician said he will recover soon. A glimmer of hope returned to my darkened heart. She sighed deeply. Your Highness, you have a white hair. I was only 25, in the prime of my life, yet I already had white hair. I looked in the bronze mirror. The woman reflected was still beautiful, but with a touch of weariness, a shadow of sorrow. She didn't look like me, but a highborn lady whose heart had been broken by her husband, one who could no longer find joy. I took out the brocade box from beside my pillow. Inside were dozens of letters he had written to me. I had kept them all pristine, no folds, no tears, only the faint dried stains of tears. In the 3 months before our wedding, when we were not allowed to see each other, he had written to me every other day. Rosalind, it has been a few days since I saw you. I miss you greatly. Rosalind, the Imperial Kitchen made a new dish today. I think you will like it. I have had someone send it to you. Rosalind, I will be marrying you tomorrow. I think I will be too excited to sleep tonight. I miss you. Rosalind, I will love you for a lifetime. I opened them, one by one, and read them again. In the year he was gone, in the silent nights. I had read them countless times. Each time, it was as if he were back by my side, holding me, murmuring tenderly, Rosalind, my sweet Rosalind. Afraid I would grow sadder, Clara helped me put the letters away and closed the box. Just then, a peal of laughter like silver bells drifted in. It was Luna. She wore a wreath of flowers on her head and was snuggled against him. Those were the gardenias he had planted for me. Every seedling, every scoop of soil tended by his own hands. Now, he had picked them himself, woven them into a wreath, and placed it upon another woman's head. In that moment, my heart ached with an unbearable pain, as if my body were being torn apart. I clutched my chest. Theodore, oh Theodore, how can I accept that you have forgotten me and fallen in love with another? The palace was large, but I often saw Luna. She was always smiling, carefree, chasing butterflies, laughing, like a bird in the forest, a flower in the wild, free and unrestrained. And I was bound by rules, a caged bird, a carefully cultivated peony, beautiful but confined to a single patch of soil. We were two extremes. I had never been like her. After drinking the bitter medicine Clara brought, I had to eat 2 candied fruits to chase the taste away. I hadn't expected him to come looking for me. He was holding a pot of gardenias. Cain told me the gardenias in the courtyard are your most treasured possessions. I nodded. It wasn't just the flowers, but the love he had planted with them. He looked at me apologetically. I am sorry, I didn't know they were so important to you. This pot is to replace them. I laughed lightly. Is it only this one pot of flowers that you are sorry for? He didn't answer, just stared at the flowers. I stared at them too. In my heart, I felt they should have been mine. He spoke suddenly. Rosalind, I have failed you. I am sorry. His voice was full of a sorrow and helplessness that could not be dispelled. I pursed my lips and drank all the flower tea in the pot to swallow the bitterness rising in my throat. I don't like to hear that. Don't say it again. After that day, he often came to my courtyard, always with a pot of gardenias. He wouldn't speak, just place the flower down and sit in my room. Sometimes he would look at the jewelry on my dressing table. Sometimes he would flip through the Buddhist scriptures I had copied. This time, he finally spoke. Did you copy these scriptures yourself? It was a thick stack, every stroke written with all my sincerity. I was reviewing the palace accounts at the time and just nodded. In the year you were missing, I knelt in the prayer hall for 2 hours every day, copying scriptures, praying only for your safe return. It seemed my prayers were not enough. I had prayed for his safe return, but not for his enduring love. I didn't look up at him, so I don't know what his expression was. I only heard him say, just as he had before, in a voice full of guilt and helplessness, Rosalind, I am sorry. But that was not what I wanted to hear. Clara said that perhaps the physician's medicine was working, that he was beginning to remember bits and pieces of the past. Or perhaps, after spending this time together, he was falling for me again. After all, people who once loved each other deeply will always be drawn to each other again, no matter how much time has passed. But I didn't think so. He still spent more time with Luna chasing butterflies, playing in the water, picking flowers, making wine. He often brought me flowers, but it felt more like an act of atonement, and also like a farewell. Clara, the potted plant in the prince's room seems to have withered. Clara, who was grinding ink for me, replied casually. Withered? Then I will have someone replace it with a new one. How about a gardenia? If he sees it every day, he will surely remember your goodness, your highness. I shook my head. No need. It wouldn't matter. Whether it was a gardenia or an orchid, it would still wither. When Luna came, I was just putting Leo to sleep. The moment she saw me, she was like a chick that had spotted a hawk. All her liveliness was gone. All that remained was fear. I motioned for her to sit and had Clara pour her a cup of tea. She held the cup and took a small sip. Her brow furrowed slightly. She was clearly not used to such strong, bitter tea. She looked up at me, her expression serious. Your Highness, I came to you because I have something to say. Speak, I said, taking a sip of the bitter tea myself. You and Adrian have known each other for many years, been married for 7. But do you really know him? Clara was about to scold her, but I stopped her. I found it somewhat amusing. Are you saying that after knowing him for a year, you know him better than I do? She answered with conviction, her initial timidity replaced by confidence. Of course. You only see him as the crown prince. I see him as a person. Then, she looked a little guilty. It is true. I knew from the beginning that he had a Rosalind in his heart. When I first rescued him, he would cry out her name in his sleep every night. But after a while, he stopped. He began to enjoy his life with me. We would go to the mountains to gather herbs, climb trees to pick fruit, and go to the river to catch fish. He loves to craft things. His carved wooden hairpins and dolls are so lifelike. Every time I took them to the market, they would sell for a good price. He is also a connoisseur of wine. He can tell which wine is older and more fragrant just by the smell. I can see that Adrian is truly happy with this kind of life. Genuinely happy. Your Highness, do you think he really wants to be the crown prince? Is he suited to be a prince, a future king? And you, Your Highness, do you truly love him as a person, or do you love his title more? Her words were like a stone thrown into the abyss of my heart, creating ripples that would not subside. She said she loved him more than I did, a love that was sincere and pure, without any ulterior motives. Clara advised me, Your Highness, do not listen to her. What right does she have to judge the relationship between you and the prince? She is just an uneducated country girl. What does she know of the responsibilities of the state? The prince was born a prince, and he was born to bear this burden. To live a life of reckless abandon is not something a prince should even dream of. I gripped my teacup tightly and sighed. I don't know if he was the one dreaming, or if I was the one who was too arrogant. The night was quiet. The silence was vast, broken only by the gentle rustling of leaves in the wind. The full moon was a jade plate in the sky, accompanied by a scattering of stars. I couldn't sleep again. Ever since he disappeared a year ago, I had tossed and turned every night. Sometimes, when I couldn't bear it, I would have to drink a sleeping draught to find some rest. Now, as usual, I sat on my bed, gazing at the moon. In the hazy moonlight, I saw a figure approaching. It was him. He stopped outside my window and leaned against the wall. One of us inside, one outside. So close, yet our hearts were worlds apart. We were silent for a long time. I spoke first. I hear you've been making wine. I'd like to try some. He agreed readily. When he returned, he was holding a jug of wine. We sat opposite each other under the osmanthus tree in the courtyard. We filled our cups and emptied them, over and over. Wine is intoxicating. It can also give you the courage to say things you normally wouldn't. We started talking, a few words here and there. For a woman, you abandoned your family, your wife and child, even your country. Theodore, do you truly love her that much? This kind of unconditional love. It made me jealous. And also, a little scared. He held his cup tightly and said in a low voice, I have tasted freedom now. All the silks and jewels are just decorations on a gilded cage. Rosalind, I have thought about it carefully. Even with my memory gone, I am certain that I do not want to be the crown prince, nor do I want to be a king. If I ever worked towards that goal, it was perhaps for you, because I loved you. I chose to give up my freedom to chase something I didn't want, just to make you happy. Rosalind, I can feel that once. I loved you very much. His words made me down several more cups of wine. I laughed bitterly. I never knew your skill in winemaking was so much better than your skill in handling state affairs. Theo, after all these years, I never really knew you. I always knew the gardenia bracelet you carved was beautiful, and I loved it. I also knew you loved music, and nature, and wine, just not politics. Theo, you must have suffered so much all these years. Unconsciously, tears streamed down my face. He stared at my reddened eyes, his brow furrowed. His warm fingers brushed away my tears. I grabbed his hot hand, but then I thought, his hand had probably also held her face, murmuring her name. I let go and looked at him, my voice soft but serious. Theo, if you were truly happy during that time, then go on and live that life. You don't have to feel guilty towards me, nor do you have to dwell on the past. Theodore, if you wish it, you can go and live the life you desire. With that, I stood up and staggered back to my room. He remained sitting under the osmanthus tree. The wind blew, and petals drifted down onto his head, his shoulders, his cup. I closed the door, and I closed the window. From now on, I would not look at that moon. Another sleepless night. Even with the wine, which should have made me drowsy, I was wide awake. Clara used powder to cover the dark circles under my eyes, her tone cheerful. Your Highness probably doesn't know, but I saw the prince when I came in. I think he sat outside your window all night. The physician's medicine must be working. He must have remembered you. The woman in the mirror was haggard, especially the few white hairs on the left side of her head. Clara understood and quickly combed them into the black hair to hide them. I knew she was just trying to spare me from more sadness, and I just smiled faintly. Clara. As he was leaving, I wanted to pick a branch of gardenias for him, but the season had passed and only leaves remained. It didn't matter. It was just a memento. I placed the branch in his travel pack and smiled at him, as graceful and polite as ever. From now on, we go our separate ways, and may we both find happiness. He nodded and turned to take Luna's hand. The carriage was parked some distance away. They walked hand in hand, a perfect couple. He was wearing a sapphire blue robe, which reminded me of the day we were engaged. He had stood at my family's gate, holding my hand, reluctant to leave. Rosalind, you are the love of my life. I will never fail you. Will you not regret this? He didn't turn around, so I couldn't see his expression. I only heard his clear voice. From this day on, there is no more Theodore. Luna got into the carriage, and he followed. The curtain fell, and it was a final farewell. The carriage moved further and further away, and so did we, until it was just a blur in the distance. I went to the courtyard where he had stayed. As expected, the once lush potted plant was dead. Clara was confused. Why had this one plant withered when all the others were fine? It was watered with something it shouldn't have been. It was bound to die. In the pot, there were still traces of medicinal residue. Clara gasped. Could it be that His Highness? She quickly covered her mouth. She was right. He hadn't been taking the medicine. He was just pretending. He had poured it all into the plant. He didn't want to remember. He had deliberately chosen to forget. Clara, bring me my brocade box. She went to get it. I opened the box and lit a candle. The flickering flame made my eyes sting. This time, I didn't read them. I held them, envelope and all, to the flame one by one, until they turned to ash in my hands. What has turned to ash can never be whole again. Just like him, even if he remembered everything and came back to me, I would not take him. My Theo had died at the bottom of a cliff. A year ago. Theodore was dead, assassinated just outside the capital. When Kane reported it, I felt a strange coldness. My hand, holding the brush, froze, and I could only watch as the ink dripped onto the white paper, spreading into a black stain. "And Luna?" I asked. Cain looked at me with some pity. "She killed herself to be with him. When I arrived, she was holding his body, weeping pitifully. Then she picked up a nearby dagger and plunged it into her heart. She died instantly." Luna was right. She loved him more than I did. In love and being loved, I had lost to her. "Do we know who did it?" Cain pursed his lips. "Your Highness should know who would want to harm the prince." I did. I had known for over a year, ever since he was ambushed and fell from that cliff. I put down my brush. "Clara, I must go to the palace." I presented his body and the evidence to the Emperor. The Emperor, having lost his beloved son for a second time, fainted on the spot. When he awoke, he summoned the second prince. He threw an inkstone at him, hitting him squarely on the forehead. Blood and ink mixed together, a pathetic sight. The Emperor roared, "You vile creature," to assassinate the crown prince, not once, but twice. His plot exposed, the second prince, knowing he was now the only heir, was defiant. He argued with the Emperor on the spot. "I am vile, father. Why don't you ask yourself if you have been too biased towards him? He was incompetent, so you married him to a capable wife, willing to hand the empire over to a woman rather than let me inherit. Just because he was the first empress's son, does he deserve everything? Father, do you think you were really being good to him? Do you know he never wanted to be the crown prince? He enjoyed a life of leisure, but state affairs gave him a headache. An incompetent man. What right did he have to be the crown prince? Father, you killed him. Your favoritism killed him." His fierce words made the Emperor cough up a mouthful of blood. Before he collapsed, he ordered, "Throw the second prince into the imperial prison. He is never to be released." The second prince was shocked. "Impossible. I am your only son now. Without me, who will inherit the throne?" But the Emperor not only had another son, he had a grandson and a carefully chosen daughter-in-law. After the Emperor fainted, I walked out from a side door and stood before the second prince, looking down at him. "Your Highness, did you know that I found evidence of your first assassination attempt over a year ago? But the crown prince was a benevolent man, and he truly loved you as a brother. So I held back, waiting for him to return and decide your fate. But he lost his memory and no longer wanted to be the crown prince. I let him go. If you had done nothing, you would have become the crown prince. But you were too greedy and too cruel. If I didn't deal with you now, I feared you would come after Leo and me. I cannot risk my son's life. With my family's pressure, the Emperor will not be lenient. From now on, you can spend your days in prison, praying for your brother's soul." After that day, the Emperor fell gravely ill. The loss of 2 sons had broken his heart. He passed away not long after. With the support of the 5 great families, Leo smoothly ascended the throne. And I, who had been a crown princess, but never an empress, became the Empress Dowager. The Emperor was young, so the Empress Dowager ruled as regent. It was not to boast, but I had studied the art of governance alongside the crown prince since I was a child. Even the imperial tutor had praised me. If Rosalind were a man, she would be the prime minister. Now, I had not let him down. At Theodore's grave, I placed a bouquet of gardenias. "Theo, now we have both gotten what we wanted. No regrets. Don't look back." A gentle breeze blew, and a gardenia petal fell. It drifted away with the wind, never to return. Epilogue: Theodore the arrow hit me in the chest, and I fell. But I heard a crisp, shattering sound. It was the gardenia jade bracelet that Rosalind wore. I don't know when she had put it in my pack. As the jade shattered, all my memories came flooding back. "Theodore, you truly are a fool. How could you have forgotten Rosalind? She was the one you loved your whole life, the one you gave up your freedom for. Your Rosalind. Rosalind, I have failed you. I knew from a young age that my mother was the love of my father's life. Even the empire he wanted to give to me. But I also knew that I was not meant to be a prince, nor a king. Until I met Rosalind. She was 6 then, and could already write a brilliant essay that even the imperial tutor praised. She was so good to me, helping me with my lessons, catching crickets with me, helping me please my father. I thought she must be an angel sent from heaven to save me. Later, I found a piece of fine jade and carefully carved a gardenia bracelet. The carving knife was sharp, and I cut my fingers many times. When I put the bracelet on her, I asked, "Do you understand my heart?" She blushed and nodded. "I do." In that moment, a great wave washed over me, all because she had said, "I do." I held her tightly and said with conviction, "In this life, I will never let you go." I begged my father to arrange our marriage. It was the first time he had not immediately agreed to my request. He was very serious. "Theo, do you know that Rosalind is not an ordinary girl? She is the heir of the greatest of the 5 families. She was born to be a crown princess, a future empress. If you have no intention of taking the throne, then do not hold her back. Do not waste her family's efforts, or her own. Theo, you must understand how hard her life has been." I knew. While I was playing with birds, she was reading. While I was fighting crickets, she was practicing calligraphy. While I was listening to music, she was learning court etiquette. She worked 100 times harder than I did. I had once asked her if she was tired. She had just smiled, her brush never stopping. As a daughter of my house, it is what is expected of me. In this life, one must be worthy of one's parents, of the emperor's grace, and of one's own heart. That night, I thought all night. And I still asked my father to arrange the marriage. I loved her. Even if it meant losing my freedom, doing things I hated, I loved her. My father agreed. After we were married, my life was indeed not as carefree as before. I had to handle state affairs, arrange matters, and it gave me a headache. I much preferred to plant her favorite gardenias in the courtyard, to feed the fish in the lotus pond, to summon the most famous opera troupe in the capital to perform. But she was different. She could manage the household affairs, and also help me review the state documents. She would say, "Your Highness, do not worry. Rosalind will handle everything." And it was true. With her, I could be free even in the palace. But at court, I was like a bird with its feet tied. When the ministers asked me about flood control, I had no answer. When the second prince asked me about taxes, I didn't know. My father would sigh, looking at the annotated documents. "Theo, you must learn to do these things yourself. Rosalind is capable, but she cannot manage both the court and the palace for you. The palace, the state affairs, and Leo. She is just one woman. How can she handle so much? You should think of her." But these were not things I was good at, nor did I enjoy them. I felt as if I were being crushed by a great stone struggling to breathe. Until I was ambushed and fell from that cliff. When I opened my eyes, I saw Luna. That time was truly the life I had always dreamed of. Free, unrestrained. After I was brought back to the palace, Rosalind started giving me medicine. During that time, I would have flashes of memory. Rosalind playing the zither while I played the flute. A duet of our love. Youth standing in the snow on the lantern festival, admiring the plum blossoms, letting the snowflakes fall on our heads. Youth on the palace roof, gazing at the moon, which was so round and bright that night. "Rosalind, the moon is like my heart. When you see the moon, you see my sincerity for you." The moment the memories surfaced, I was scared. I was scared of remembering the past, scared of loving her more than anything, scared of going back to being a lifeless crown prince. So, I poured every bowl of medicine into the potted plant. That night, I wandered the palace aimlessly and found myself outside her window. She said, "I hear you've been making wine. I'd like to try some." We drank, and she seemed a little drunk. When her tears fell, my heart ached with hers. She said, "If you wish it, you can go and live the life you desire." She had let me go. I was about to get the freedom I wanted. But what a shame. My freedom was so short-lived and I was so pathetic. I had lost the love of my life. And I couldn't even be the carefree Theodore. Rosalind, my sweet Rosalind.